Hello, my book family. How are you? I'm doing fantastic, just in case you were wondering. It's Wednesday today. It's beautiful outside. It's quiet because, it's still very early in the afternoon. The kids are not out there riding their bike and, causing all kinds of trouble. So we're going to take this time and talk about books. So in today's video, I will be sharing with you all the books I have read for the month of July. So please don't go too far. Stay with me. All right, Jambo, Karibu, welcome to my channel. My name is Chilanda and this is Library Without Borders. I think I've told you guys already why I have named my channel Library Without Borders, yeah? Maybe for new subscribers, the reason why I named my channel Library Without Borders is because I wanted to be able to dive in different genres of books, not just fantasy or thrillers or fiction literature or non-fiction or self-help books. I wanted to dive in all genre books, and as well as learning about different people, different cultures around the world. I mean, I also wanted to learn about aliens. You know what I mean? Not just this world, like the galaxy out there. That's why it's Library Without Borders. We don't got no borders. The only thing we don't do is deal with the dead. Not on my channel. We just don't do paranormal shit. But that may change. I don't know. Maybe I've gotten so brave and I'm thinking I can just tackle the paranormal world. We'll see. Anyways, you guys, so without further ado, let's talk about the books that I have read for the month of July. So I read a total of 7 books. One of them was now really part of my TBR. It is this little tiny book by John Parker and Richard Rathbone, a very short introduction of African history. My people, I highly recommend this book. I can't talk to you about all of the information that I have learned about Africa and its people and Europeans and the world, And even though a lot of information I knew already, it was just written differently. I mean, it's short, you guys, and it's free on Audible. So if you don't want to read the book, you can actually listen to it, and I do recommend listening to it, and I do recommend buying the book because it's only $6, plus it helps you highlight the book. So here it touches, like I said, on the history of Africa and the people that have tried to bring Africa into the forefront of the world. They've tried to find information, books, and basically historical findings that show that Africa was not just a just there, while it was being looted, while it was being taken advantage of, when it was being colonized, or all of that stuff. It actively participated in the making of the modern world, and that's why this book touches on. It talked about all the different kingdoms that were found in Africa before the coming of the Portuguese, of the British people, of the Europeans, and so forth. And it talked about how history was passed on to our people. Obviously, we know it was passed on orally, but sometimes we also found that through sculptures, through paintings, they were translating their history through those monuments. I wanted to just read you a little bit here, just a little bit, because I'm thinking I will talk more about it in my vlog that I've already started. I want to have the freedom of talking more about this book. I don't want to take too much time. First, have you guys ever wondered how Africa was invented? Do you guys believe it was by the Africans themselves or by non-Africans? There's a quote here. In fact, it is quoted by this philosopher. He's Congolese. I will pick up his book. His name is Z.Y. Mudimbe. So it says, how was Africa invented and by whom? The short answer, according to Mudimbe, is that the idea of Africa was initially fashioned not by Africans, but by non-Africans as a paradigm of difference. Africa, in other words, has served as an exotic prism through which outsiders, mainly Europeans, refracted images of the other and of themselves. And I also want to talk to you a little bit about the Pan-Africanism, how it came about. There's so much things, so much pictures. Roy migrated to Liberia in 1846, made a fortune as a trader, and was elected president in 1869, serving for 2 years before being deposed in 1871. The African-American settler colony of Liberia was an important symbol for vindicationists thinking about Africa and the black race. You see how African Americans and Africa is interconnected. I love this. All right, so about Pan-Africanism, where is that? Talking about Africans selling other Africans. Yeah, I'll talk about that more later on. Look at this picture. So here it says the first to do so were Western educated intellectuals from the black diaspora, men like the celebrated anti-slave trade campaigner Olaudah Equiano, and 19th century African Americans like Alexander Crummell, Martin Delany, and Edward W. Blyden. Able to perceive Africa because of their very removal from it, these thinkers laid the foundation of what came to be known as Pan-Africanism. You see, Pan-Africanism is African Americans, right? It is them who started this Pan-Africanism, and today it has taken a different trajectory, but it includes as well many Africans who have found themselves represented in this idea of a whole, Pan-Africanism. I like that idea. And like I said, I don't want to talk too much about this book in this video. I simply wanted to show, I don't know how many of you watched my video, but for those who watched it, thank you so much, where I talk about Africans and African Americans. I wanted to show you a little bit about this picture. Y'all see this picture? This man is Patrice Lumumba. He was the president in Congo in 1960. When we first took our independence from Belgium. And all these people that you see are African Americans protesting in African politics tangled with African American politics. Members of the Nation of Islam holding placards with the portrait of murdered Congolese Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba staged a counter demonstration during a rally by the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People in Harlem, New York City in 1961. Again, just to go back to my message that I sent, there is much more that unites us than divides us. This part of history, how many of you know of our forefathers who fought together to denounce the assassination of Patrice Lumumba? See, this is what I'm talking about. Y'all don't talk about Congo, but y'all, for everyone that has been following me from the beginning, I have read so many African American books, but there's always a tie to Congo. There are, of course, ties to Ghana, Nigeria, and all that stuff, but there's always those subtle books that I found, and I'm like, oh, there's a little about Congo. And look at that. When I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I knew that Malcolm X had actually talked about Patrice Lumumba, and I believe he actually met him. But, this book talks a lot about how Muslim and Christian fought to convert Africans, how the wars and the many countries that were involved, and how Africa fought back. But there so many things, guys, that it will take me a whole day to talk about this book, but I truly recommend to pick this book up. Okay, next I want to talk about this book, The Sheltering Sky. Now, if you see the fact that I tabbed this book, is because it was the vulgar terms that were used in this book that were so shocking to me. This book talks about 3 characters that are coming from New York in the 1950s in Morocco. They're settling in Morocco. I have no idea why, but they decided that, New York wasn't good enough for them anymore, and they were going to go to Morocco. And while they're staying there, it's them basically criticizing the Moroccans and having derogatory terms to talk about the locals. Every single sentence, whenever they wanted to talk about the locals, were the Arab this, Arab that, Arab this. And then they're Americans. They also had issues with French people, because, French and Americans. Okay, so at this point, we're in a hotel in Morocco. It's a couple, they're married, plus a friend. The friend's name is Tunner, and the husband is Port. What happens is that they're there, they're talking, they're having coffee, they're bored, basically complaining about the mosquito, the sun, the sheltering skies, and all this stuff. That's all they do. And the relationship between the husband and the wife is peculiar. to say the least. And it looks as well as if the friend has something for the wife, and I think Port knows that. He knows that. Long story short, at some point they decide that they're going to go in another city, I guess to visit a different city. So on the way to that city, they have to go through the Sahara Desert. Something happens to the husband. He falls ill. He's sick. He dies. I'm not ruining it for you, but he dies, okay? Because there's like much more like this with the rest of the two characters. So he passes away, and then the woman is found. She's by herself because her husband wanted them to travel together without their friend, because he knew of how the friend felt about the wife, and he didn't want them to travel together. So she's there alone, and she has no idea how to get in touch with Tunner. With Tunner. So long story short, she decides that she's gonna leave him at this. It's like a prison, and there she meets either, I think it's a French military or British military, one of them two, and he's basically posted there. Yeah, that's the word. He's posted there, and at some point he decides to help them. So before the husband dies, he's in there, and she tries to take care of him, and at some point she kind of just leaves, right? And she decides to leave. Long story short, she finds herself in the Sahara Desert by herself with a suitcase, and she sees a group of these Arab traveling people and decides to hitch a ride with them. And nothing comes for free. This young man decides that he's just gonna start something with her, and of course she couldn't fight. She's among men. At some point you see in the story, one of the locals will take her, bring her a bit further where a tree is, and basically do his business with her. And she couldn't say nothing. Can you imagine? Y'all don't even take showers there, and Anyways, apart from that, they arrive at the city where the men were traveling, and this young boy decides that he's gonna take her as his mistress. So he brings her to his home, puts her like far away in isolated location within his home, where his other wives, because he has many wives, don't even have access to her. And at first he dresses her like a boy, so his wives are thinking that, oh, he has a boy, that's just there. Anyways, he would go on for days, do his business, and not come back for like days, and she would be there like bored because she can't even go out and stretch and see the outside. So at some point she decides that she can't continue to live like that. She's gonna have to like find a way to live and leave. Okay. And she comes up with a plan, and that plan includes the wives with whom that she fought first of all. Like when they discovered she was a woman, they fought her, took her jewelries, blah blah blah. And then long story short, guys, I will spare you the details, she finds herself out of that place finally. And there's also something happening with Tunner. He's like somewhere else in the city trying to find them. He does discover that the husband has passed away, so now he's like preoccupied with finding her. So anyways, yeah, I read this book. A lot of people would have DNF'd it. It was written like in 1999 by Paul Bowles. This is the man. I just found that, yeah, the language, not the language, but the way he portrayed the Arab people, the Moroccans, was just a bit too distasteful for me. In terms of the plot, the story, like I said, this story, there's no plot. There's not really anything. Like it's not action packed. It's just people settling another country and discovering that what the French did to the country, and how people lost its culture, and how it's now a problem for them. Go figure. Anyways, it's a 2.5 out of 5. Apparently it was a good book, nominated for prizes. You have to wonder which kind of people read these kind of books. So 2.0 out of 5 for me. And then I read Daughters of Jubilation by Carolee Cawthron. I liked her writing that I ordered her other book that she wrote, actually. Anyway, so this story is about Deschamps, Eveline Deschamps, her grandmother and her mom. She's descendant of these women who have power, and it's been passed on, I think, through matrilineal lineage. And she is basically figuring out how to control her powers, right? And she can either move leaves, or like she can do things, okay? And what really struck me about her relationship with her mom versus her grandmother is that her grandmother is viewed among the people of that city as peculiar, as a bit odd, and she's even been accused of killing her husband, which is not true. That's with the grandma. Whereas the relationship with her mom is fine. It's simply that her mom is very much like, you need to control this by going to church, you know, you need to call God to help you and all that stuff. And I like the contrast in the sense that the mom was more traditional, more centered in her belief that were passed on by her foremothers, and she wanted to not include religion, you know, white people's Christianity, because this is said during Jim Crow, and you know, during Jim Crow there's still a lot of that white supremacy going on. I gravitated towards the grandmother's thinking than the mother's thinking, because to me that's just representative of what the black people have become. It is unfortunately followers of the religion that was bestowed, imposed by the enslavers, the colonizers. So anyways, apart from that, there's someone from her past that decides to appear back in her life, and that man had done something terrible to her in her youth, and she's now afraid of that person. She goes and talks to her grandmother about how to protect herself against that man, and also how to protect her boyfriend, because oh yeah guys, she does have a boyfriend. They have a cutesy relationship. I love that for them. I think they're 17 and either 18 or under 18. I really like the banter or the relationship that was blooming between them two. So she wants to protect him, obviously, because he's not, you know, he doesn't have magical powers or anything like that. So this guy, this man from his past, comes to her and is like, yo, listen, you need to be with me, because if you're not with me, your boyfriend can suffer, and you don't want that. And she's like afraid, because she really cares about her boyfriend. So she goes and see the grandma, and she's like, I need some type of protective things. And the grandma is like, find this about him, and then a little bit like a hoodoo or voodooism type of element in order to protect herself from this man. So long story short, without, you know, spoiling the story for you guys, there is a scene that happens. She was supposed to go out with her boyfriend, I guess to watch a movie or go out, but then he was taking long, and instead of her waiting, she decides that she's gonna go and maybe find him, and that might have been a mistake, but I'll let you guys discover. So she does get caught by him. Something happens between, when I say him, you know, it's the man from her past, and something happens between them two, and something does happen to her boyfriend. She's like, where's my boyfriend? He's like, okay, oh, he's in the forest somewhere, he's okay, blah blah blah. And then there's an epic fight that will happen in that forest where some people will be summoned, and I love that for me. I love when black people know that they can call on their ancestors, because that's our culture, that's what we know, that's what we were all about, you know. We knew that our ancestors know us, we share that blood. But anyways, you guys, I really enjoyed this story. I encourage you guys to pick it up. So it's a 4 out of 5 for me. Ooh, now this story is another story I really had fun with. It's The Diplomat's Daughter by Karen Tanabe, and I think I actually picked up her other book. She has another book, The Gilded Years. I want to read this because she's one of my new favorite authors that I just discovered, and whatever she writes, I'm gonna pick it up. So it's the story of Emi Kato, who's Japanese, but I think she was born in Japan, but she is the daughter of a diplomat. She has traveled a lot, right? She has traveled in Germany, Austria, the United States, like she's well versed, you know, around the world. So what happens is that something happens, Pearl Harbor happens. That happens in 1941. So as a result of that bombing, all these Japanese Americans either need to be deported or put somewhere else, because now there's a war that's about to like develop, you know what I mean? So Emi is caught in the throes of that, and what happens is that her dad and her mom are put in like a hotel at the beginning, And while they're enjoying a bit of comfort, at some point they are now ready to be deported in Japan. But what happens with Emmy is that she develops tuberculosis, and as a result of that, she cannot leave. She has to wait until she's not contagious, so as not to contaminate or spread the disease among other people. So she stays with her mom, and the dad leaves before. While she's getting better, we also discover, so this is a story written by 3 POVs. We have the POV of Christian and also Leo. So while she's getting well, we discover the story of Christian. Christian is a German American born. So he was born in the United States, but his parents are Germans. So obviously during that time, it is that time where Hitler is rising his hell army, right? So at that time, what happens is that the family is accused of mixing with all that Hitler business when it's not true, and they're rich, they live in a grand mansion, all that stuff. So it was someone that hated them and decided that they were just going to betray them. So unfortunately, what happens is that the parents are taken to prison and he's put into a boys' home, and that's where he'll meet people. Long story short, he is deported to this camp where his parents have been brought to. It's in Texas, and there you have a side where you have Germans and another side where you have Japanese. So that's where he is brought to because his family wanted to reunite with them, and he's the only son. Anyways, while they're there, Emmy also is finally deported to that location, and something happened between them two. So it's a book for people who are passionate about war, who are passionate about romance and historical fiction, but also historical facts, because a lot of these, it's some things that you either have learned at school or may have read about. So something happened between them two. A love story developed, which was really cute, Japanese and Germans. And the thing is, they just have one pull. Like when they described the conditions of where they were living there, you guys, I was like, oh, it was okay, it was decent, but these people were living in money, and all of a sudden they're all reduced to nothing, and they're living in close quarters. But anyways, she has to finally leave that place and leave with her mom and be deported to Japan. And when they talk about the voyage to Japan, like being in a train with so many people, living in like small quarters, sleeping in small quarters, like not having privacy, y'all, I cannot imagine. Anyways, she's arrived to Japan. And I also want to talk to you about the other POV, which is the POV of Leo. Leo is a Jewish boy. He's living in Austria, and he's at the heat of when Hitler actually comes to Austria to spread his message of hatred, okay? And unfortunately, his family, although they were well loved, well accepted because of that message, now he's being like traumatized, he's being kicked at school, like he's made to do like terrible things. And Leo in all of this is just so kind, so nice. Oh, my heart. At some point, when Emmy had traveled, this is happening during the time when she had traveled, when Japanese were not asked to leave the United States. So this is before Pearl Harbor. So she had met Leo prior to everything else happening, and they had also developed a love between them two, and they promised each other that we're gonna be together, all that good stuff. But anyways, unfortunately, as I said, as the thing is spreading, the message of Hitler and his army is spreading, and Jewish people are in danger, he has to flee with his family, and they have to go overboard. But unfortunately, other places are like blocked and they can't move. Long story short, Emmy's dad intervenes, and he's able to, like, what's the word, smuggle that's the word I was looking for, smuggle them, and they now found themselves in Japan. Okay, so those are the 3 different stories. Now in Japan, what happens with Emmy is that I think she's in Tokyo. I think it's Tokyo. Is it Tokyo or somewhere in Japan? But then it's so poor that the parents decide to bring her to ask her to go in another village. In that village, to stay like with a distant cousin, and there she will learn to basically fend for her life. Like she has to find food, and the streets, Like when they describe the people there that are emaciated, starving, babies dying, all kinds of death. Ooh. So there she's just all alone, you know, trying to basically survive. And Leo, who's also arrived in Japan without them knowing, is it in Japan or somewhere else? I think it's there. He also tries to make a life for him, and in that place there's like Germans, there is Jewish, and there is Chinese, there are Japanese, and there are just different people in that whole place. And he's also trying to find a job. At some point he's cut his hair, like he's like really handsome, you know, he had hair and all that stuff, but because of everything that was going on, like he's like lost so much weight because they can barely find food. He has to work, and that's what's going on with Leo, the Jewish boy. And then what's going on with Christian is that in order for him to leave that Texas camp, he needs to enlist in the army. Do you know who he enlists for? He enlists in the army for the United States. So you have to understand this. You are American, and you know that your parents are from German, and you're fighting. Which side do you choose to be on? But anyways, he's fighting for the United States. And I'm gonna finish the story, but yo, I can talk so much about this book. I think the city I'm trying to talk about is Nagasaki. I think it's Nagasaki. At some point there's a bombing that happened there, and it was basically the United States trying to free the Japanese from the Chinese, or the other way around. Please correct me in the comment. I read this book a while ago. So guys, as you can tell, I have so much things to say. Unfortunately, I can't really tell you a lot about, you know, a lot more about this book, but I encourage you guys to pick it up. It's The Diplomat's Daughter by Karen Tanabe. So this is a 4 out of 5 for me. I'm also doing a review on this one, Tropical Cowboys, Western Violence and Masculinity in Kinshasa by Didier Gondola. So as I said, I'm doing a vlog on it, so I won't talk much about it. The only thing I'll say is that as I am learning a lot about Congo and the state of the country during the 1950s, 1940s, 1930s, and I'm also learning about the Western world, and I'm learning about the influence of cowboys in the Congo, this book can be a bit triggering because there's a lot of things like toxic masculinity, the rape of women. It can be triggering. But if you take the book for what it is, it's a study of a people during an era where they were under the colonization, they were being brainwashed. There's a lot of things that are being explored in this book. So if you go into the mindset of wanting to learn about the Congolese people during this time and how the Cowboys era influenced the politics in Congo and the men in Congo and the life in Congo and all of it, then you can understand certain things. I'm not saying whatever happened is excusable, and I don't even think that's what the author is saying. He's just presenting you a history of the people during a certain time. So I'll talk more about that in my vlog. And then 2 more books. Daughter in Exile by BC Ajapon. I really enjoyed this book. So this one I'm actually going to rate 3.5. Not quite a 4, 3.5. It was a good story. It's the story of what's her name again? Lola. Why did I lose her name? So Lola, unfortunately, no, I'm not gonna say unfortunate. Lola is in Senegal, but she's from Ghana. There she has a couple of friends, a few of them tourists coming from the United States. The story starts well. She's having a good time, and while she's having a good time there, she meets this man who's Haitian, and he's in the Marine. Something develops between them. It's all fine. I'm excited for her, like, you know, I'm into the story. And what happens is that he has to go back to the United States. And did I mention that he's from Haiti, right? But he's lived all his life in the United States. Like I said, something happens between them. They have a relationship that develops, and when he leaves her with $2,000. He's like, I heard that here you can actually take this money and double it, apparently, and get some gold. And she's like, okay, she will get more information about it. So he gives her $2,000, goes back to the United States. So her job is to take that $2,000 and basically turn it into $20K. Y'all can just guess what happened, right? She gets, what is it? She loses that money. Anyways, finally, she tries to tell her boyfriend what happened. His name is Armand. Armand is gonna sort of okay, but there's something that's off about that man. So long story short, she discovers that she's pregnant. And boy, oh boy, you're pregnant, you're that age, out of wedlock, and you're from Ghana. you best know that you're going to be in way over your head. So she has to go tell her mom that, you know, she's pregnant, and not only that, she's also seeing a foreigner. Can you believe it? Long story short, she decides that she has to go to the United States. They had decided with Armand that she would follow him to the United States. Okay, she follows them to the United States. When she had spoke to Armand, Armand had said that there's a friend that's going to meet her there. But as soon as she lands in the United States, boy, oh boy, all her trouble starts. When I say all her trouble starts, I'm going to spare you the details because I want you guys to discover what it is for immigrants to arrive in a new country. Okay. First of all, that friend decides that, you know what, he has no place for her. So he drops her at the hospital. At the hospital, she's there. She meets some nice people who are like, yeah, we have a family, they can take you, but just for a few days until maybe you find family. Okay, no problem. So she goes there. She's exhausted. She's pregnant, right? So she gets there. By the time this story's done, she has about, is it 3 children? No, 2 children. I think it's 2 children. Okay. So anyways, she goes there and then she stays with that family, and that family, she senses that they obviously also live in small quarters. They can't really afford to have her stay there for too long. So anyways, she's like, okay. She has those friends that, remember I mentioned at the beginning of the story, those American friends, and they're like, okay, one of them is like, okay, come, you can stay with me. And there were those other friends that had said, oh, if you ever traveled here, you know, you can call me, and you know, I can be there to help you. But then when she arrives there, they're like MIA, right? But except for this other girlfriend, she's American, she's married, has a couple of kids, she's going through it with her husband. So Lola is living among them and she's feeling uncomfortable, but she needs a place to stay. She gives birth, but then she needs a job because she has to take care of her baby. And what happens is that the relationship between her and Armand has a fallout. So they're no longer together. So she's like, okay, I have to find a way to, you know, provide. And basically, guys, it's her navigating the life in the United States, trying to find a green card, trying to get jobs, trying to find a place. But then how are you gonna find a place if you don't have a job? And her meeting up all these people who are sort of trying to help her, but then they're like, yeah, but my help can only go for so long. And when she does find a job, it's like an embassy where this man knows that, you know, she needs this job, so he tries things, and obviously she's not gonna let herself being abused, so she slaps the person and now loses the only job that could provide for her. And at the end of this book, I actually cried. She had a long speech about her, what's the word when someone adapts the culture, like she wanted to assimilate within the American culture, within, you know, the African American culture, but even with whites and stuff like that, because she does have a boyfriend with whom she actually ends up marrying, but something happens to that man. And anyways, the way she wrote the story, every single time whenever I was like taking a deep breath, like, okay, she's gonna be okay now, something was happening, especially when she was like finding a place to stay with her 2 children. It was so much, like sometimes stories like that make me grateful for the fact that I came with my parents and didn't have to go through all of that. I'm not sure that my parents went through all that, I don't think so, but like, it's not easy immigrating into another country, y'all. So Daughter in Exile by BC at Japan, 3.5 out of 5. Now the last book I want to talk to you about is Something Wild by Hannah Halperin. I'm not sure, when I read the synopsis of it, it sounded intriguing, but I wanted to literally the end of this book, but I finished it, and it's a 2.5 out of 5. I'm gonna explain myself really briefly. I had a visceral reaction to this book, and I want to say this before I talk about the book. This book has physical abuse and marital physical abuse, okay? Like, let me just put it out there. So this is a fictional story. My thing was that I want this fictional story to be close to fiction and less to reality, okay? Isn't that why we pick up these books? To escape the reality, right? So when I say I had a visceral reaction, it was at the characters. There's Lorraine, she's the mom. There's Nessa, she's the daughter. And there is Tanya. Tanya is the little sister. Nessa is the big sister. I also had a weird reaction to their relationship, the sisters. Like, I found that there's certain things they were doing, I feel like us sisters didn't do it. Maybe different cultures. They're Jewish as well. Like, at some point, Nessa is obviously older. She's a bit thicker. She has her period first. And then Tanya, I guess, is growing. I think she's 14, gets her period. So she doesn't know how to wear tampons. She doesn't want to wear pads. She decides that she's going to ask her sister to show her how to do that, how to wear a tampon. Okay, fine. So these girls literally do it physically. Like, Nessa is up there spreading her stuff, putting it in, inserting it in, and then her sister's just there looking, and then she does the same thing. I was like, okay, was that necessary? We could not learn without the visual of our sister. Like, do I need to know what my sisters look like? Absolutely no. Why? Anyways, outside of that, there's something that happens between them because they're grown up. Okay, when the story picks up, they're grown up. So it goes back into the past. The way it's told, it's like present, and then they go back into the past. Tanya is like I said, she's the prettier, smaller. She's married to another Jewish man, and she's a lawyer. Her life is fine, the ideal American life. And then you have Nessa, who's just the assistant in a medical center, and she's going through relationship, through boyfriends. She smokes a lot, but anyways, other than that, they're going back to their mother's house where they grew up, and I'm not sure, I guess they're trying to visit their mom. And now when they take that trip, that's when they're revisiting basically what happened in their young age. And what happened is that, without spoiling the story, I must say this so you guys can understand a bit of my reaction to the book, is that Nessa, who's the older sister, decides that she wants her and her sister to do something, like put out an ad that there are, girls looking for, like, I don't know what, men, but they put it a different way. And they send it out. So for days, there's no response. But then some men responds to it. And I want to say this. At the time of this whole thing taking place, Tanya is 14 years old. The sister, I believe, is 16. Something happens. And all I want to say is that this whole thing was initiated by Nessa, the big sister. I'm gonna leave it at that. So let's talk, before I conclude the story, let's talk about the mother's relationship with the man, Jesse. Jesse is married to Lorraine, the mom. It's been 16 years. She was divorced with the father of her daughters because the father decided, I guess he was bored and he wanted a young woman. No problem. He's living his best life there, and she's living this life with Jesse. And as a reader, when I was reading the story, I was like, please, author, I don't want to judge the development of this story, but please do something here that I'm gonna be in agreement with. Because the whole time, there was just some things I was just like, ugh, was that necessary to put it? I was just like, why? Ugh. I was absolutely put out with this book. There were so many signs that Lorraine was being in an abusive relationship. At some point, Tanya, the lawyer, tells her you need to get a restraining order. She even tells her mom, screams, they took a getaway, and she had the opportunity to leave that relationship. And like I said, a lot of people may say it's close to what real life is, how it's just never that easy for, people in an abusive relationship to leave. It's in a book. It's a fiction story. Make her leave. And I have to say, in that visceral reaction that I had to the way the mom was kept explaining away his behavior, his reaction. They even tried therapy. And at some point, even the therapist is like, call me, I need to talk to you by yourself. He talks to her, like, I don't think you're safe in that relationship. Again, she's not heeding to her daughter's advice, not even the therapist. And there are just so many little things that this man will react to, and you're just like, what is going on? Like, at some point I said, I hope this woman dies, because why you staying in there? I literally said that. I don't feel bad for saying that, because I don't know. You guys, I don't know. If you want to read this book, do it at your own peril and risks. It's a 2 out of 5 for me. It's a 2 out of 5 for me. There you have it, you guys. Those are the totality of books that I read for the month of July. 7 books, not terrible. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And my pink cowgirl hat. And on that note, I'm wishing you a beautiful day, a beautiful week until my next video. So please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see you in my next video. Bye.